Drafted Nation, I'm joined here by former CFL football player and current Olympic bobsledder Jesse Lumsden. Jesse, good to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me.
So, you had a phenomenal career at McMaster, won the Heck Creighton Trophy in 2004, which meant you were the best player in the entire nation. This earned you a shot at the NFL. What was your experience like going to NFL training camp, the Seahawks and the Redskins?
It was wild. I mean, coming out of McMaster and going straight to, I had the chance to go and play the Shrine game down in San Francisco, so I got a little bit of a taste of the NCAA action, which was good. But I was so green going into Seahawks training camp. I was completely bombarded with all sorts of information, and it was a huge, huge learning curve for me. Not necessarily from the game of football itself, but from everything else that goes around with it. And I didn't have a chance. Yeah, I guess you could say you have a chance, but I was, when I kind of realized what my role was down there, I took advantage of the opportunity. I learned a lot, and when it was time for me to come back to Hamilton halfway through the season, I know it made me a better football player when I came back to play with the Ticats.
What was that transition like? I know myself, I'm a huge Ticat fan, and I'm from Hamilton, so having you come back was amazing. There was a lot of hype around you coming back, and the fans were thrilled to have you. What was that like transitioning from the NFL to the CFL, and what was maybe one of your most memorable moments playing in the CFL?
I think it's the transition was fairly easy because football is football, and I grew up playing the Canadian game, so coming back to the Canadian game was simple. I didn't come back as a starter. Troy Davis was the starting running back, and I got the chance to carry the ball a few weeks after I had come back, and we had won a couple games. And it's, to be honest, one of the things I can remember is my very first opening kickoff return against the Edmonton Eskimos. And just the adrenaline that was running through me, and after that return, it wasn't a stellar return or anything, but that really stands out in my mind. And then a few years later, I played a game on my birthday and had one of my better games, and the crowd was singing me "Happy Birthday." I mean, that's cool. That's hard to.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's neat. Now, I know that your career was cut short by injury. How did it come about that you went from football to bobsledding?
It was in 2009. Not much more than a year or less before the Olympic Games in Vancouver. And I got an email from the high performance director at the time, Matt Hindle, who had received emails from before in college, and they recruit pretty hard in the football, the rugby, in the collegiate level, because they're looking for power and speed athletes. And at that time, I was focused directly on football. And I remember being in my parents' kitchen, and in the email asked me to come out to try to push. It said in the email, we're trying to put together the best team possible for the Vancouver Olympic season, and we just want you to come out and try it. So I came out there with 3 or 4 other guys, one being Chad Rempel, who's the long snapper for the Toronto Argonauts, and I was with him as a Ticat as well, I believe, at that time. And we tried pushing, and it quickly snowballed. And my mentality going into that was, okay, I'm going to go try this. It's going to make me a better athlete. I'm going to learn a thing or two. The chances of actually thinking of making an Olympic team 9 months before the Olympics is pretty far-fetched.
It's incredible.
But once I got there and started pushing and developed a taste for it, I got invited to go to Canadian Championships a month later in Whistler, and I stood with Pierre. And I just kept liking it more and more and more. And I ended up in Edmonton after going through free agency that season and wrecking my shoulder in the first game of the season again. And that's when it really hit home. Okay, well, this season is unfortunately done for me. I thought it was going to be like a coming out party, a new start sort of thing. I was going to have a great football season and then go slide. But, stuff happens, injuries happen, and I was unfortunately snake bitten a little bit. But after the surgery, it forced me to immerse myself into the training that I needed to do what it took to get to the Olympics and make the Canadian Olympic team.
That's incredible. Now, with that experience on your belt, you've also since then come second at the Bobsledding World Championships and won a gold medal at a World Cup.
Yep.
So with all that now under your belt, the experience of the 2010 Olympics, what are your goals for Sochi, this upcoming Olympics?
I think in terms of, I'll speak on terms of Canada's goals, it's to win. I mean, we've proved that we have what it takes. We have the most dominant female team in the world right now. Lyndon and I had great success the last 2 years in the 2-man. 4-man, we're just kind of teetering on the points of breaking through. We haven't done it yet, but we have a full season before we go to the Olympics next year. There's no doubt in my mind we're all going to Sochi to win, and anything else I think would be considered a disappointment.
That's awesome. Well, you have my support. You have the support of the entire nation. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks
Really
for having me.
appreciate it. With Drafted and Sportsnet 360, I'm Andrew Corry.